Good afternoon to everyone joining us from across the world. Welcome to East Lansing, Michigan, and to EXPLOR Ed, hosted by me, Jerlando Jackson, Dean for the College of Education at Michigan State University. Today is our third episode of our showcase series for the MSU College of Education. EXPLOR Ed brings thought leaders to campus in conversation regarding the future of education, kinesiology, leadership, equity, and more. Today, we are honored to welcome Dr. James L. Moore III. Dr. James L. Moore III is the Assistant Director for the Directorate for STEM Education at the National Science Foundation. The Directorate supports science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Projects focusing on K-12 education, undergraduate and graduate education, workforce and human resource development, and learning in formal and informal settings. He is on loan from Ohio State University. Prior to his NSF appointment, while at Ohio State University, he served as the Vice Provost for Diversity and Inclusion, Chief Diversity Officer, and leader of the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. Dr. Moore has also been a member of The Ohio State University faculty since 2002, becoming the first executive director for the Todd Anthony Bell National Resource Center on the African American Male. And he served as the inaugural Education and Human Ecology Distinguished Professor of Urban Education. He is nationally and internationally recognized for his work on African American males with a research agenda focused on school counseling, gifted education, urban education, higher education, multicultural education and counseling, and lastly, STEM education. From 2015 to 2017, Dr. Moore also served as a program director for broadening participation in engineering in the Directorate for Engineering at the National Science Foundation as well. During that time, he was one of the program directors who helped launch NSF Includes, a $100 million plus National Broadening Participation in STEM initiative. Since 2018, he has been cited annually by the Education Week as one of the 200 most influential scholars and researchers in the United States. Please join me in welcoming Dr. James L. Moore III to Michigan State University. Welcome, Dr. Moore. You and I have been collaborators for many years, and I am thrilled to welcome you to Michigan State University this week. In August 2022, you were selected by the National Science Foundation to lead the Directorate of STEM Education. Can you tell us more about the Directorate and what it aims to do?
Well, thank you, Dr. Jackson, for inviting me to sit on your be a part of your series. Equally as important, I would be remiss if I didn't thank all the many people who supported my travel here to be in the moment with you at this time. At the National Science Foundation, we have a storied history of funding or investing in PIs and ideas that impact STEM education at every juncture of education. In our directorate, it's pretty comprehensive. There are almost 200 employees. Our budget is almost $1.3 billion. And not only that, we focus on K to Gray. This is a seminal moment in my personal and professional life. It's an opportunity to leverage all the things that I have learned in my research as well as my professional career to scale. It's an opportunity to not just impact thousands of individuals, to literally impact millions of individuals. As you know, that too many of our young people are not afforded opportunities. And so one of the main thrusts of my directorate in general, the agency in particular, is to focus on reaching the missing millions in STEM. And those are individuals who have not been cultivated, supported, and encouraged for STEM opportunities. We have too many young people who are foreclosing on STEM opportunities strictly because they reside in parts of the country that do not inspire them to go into these STEM areas. So I can say this is a salient moment for me, one that I hope that I'm able to realize what all that people expect me to achieve in this moment.
Prior to assuming your role at the National Science Foundation, you served as a faculty member at The Ohio State University for many years and leader of campus efforts related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. What sparked your interest in this role that you currently have in STEM education specifically?
So I was in the right place at the right time. I went to Virginia Tech, as you know, and I received my master's and PhD, and I worked in the College of Engineering. And what I recognized at that time, many of the things that my colleagues and I talked about in the K-12 context, people were beginning to talk about it in the higher education, but they use a different nomenclature to describe the lack of persistence or the challenges that certain groups had in STEM. In working in that role, I became very intrigued and very motivated to make a difference in ensuring that certain student populations were able to fare well in STEM. And so what was driven out of that is through being a practitioner at the time, but also I became so intrigued with it that I pursued my doctoral studies. My dissertation was on the persistence of African American males in engineering. And so I gave birth to my dissertation on June 14th, 2000 at 1 p.m. And at that time, I, like most dissertations, you probably say, well, it could have been better, but it was the dissertation that made me a doctor. And so you put it to the side, but it kept coming back. And so in turn, out of that, I began to develop a research agenda around it, and we're able to be successful and make a contribution. And in turn, people called upon me and saw me as a thought leader in that space. What made me interested in this position, to be honest with you, I love my role at Ohio State University. Our Office of Diversity and Inclusion is one of the oldest, largest, and most comprehensive office of its kind. We had 2 Rhodes Scholars came out of my office, a Truman Scholar. So we were making tremendous headway. But I would say, like everything, opportunities come knocking, and some opportunities you have to take a closer look at. And so Dr. Deborah Ball, who's an eminent professor at the University of Michigan, one of your alumni at Michigan State, she was the chair of the committee, of the external committee for this position as assistant director. And she reached out to me and told me about it. And then she reached out to me again and told me about it. And if you ever read some of the job descriptions in the federal government, they're not too desirable. They're not quite motivating. They're cookie cutter. They don't really tell you a lot. So what I decided to do is to go to the actual website, and I look behind the curtain and say, oh, they're doing some things that I'm very interested in. And what I thought was, I saw that it was a lot different from when I was a program director in the engineering director. So I felt that NSF had made greater strides, and they were more motivated for the areas that I thought they needed to spend their attention on. And so what really was the catalyst for me to decide to submit my materials is that I did some searches on YouTube about the director. And Dr. Panchanathan, I heard him, and he's inspiring and he's convincing. And I contacted some of my colleagues. I said, hey, does that man really believe what he's saying? Because, we've been doing this work. You meet people, they say one thing, but their actions convey something else. And they said, no, this guy really believes that we can reach the missing millions in STEM. And so therefore, I thought it might be a long shot. But one thing I've always been told growing up in the South by my parents, you got 100% chance you won't achieve something if you don't try. And so I spent the time trying to put my materials together. And anybody know anything about me, it's like pulling teeth for me to update my CV. That's not something that I really enjoy doing. I don't. And some people think that should be a good thing, but I don't enjoy doing it, but I did. And I spent a lot of time on it, and I felt good about the package. And so if you know anything about the government, they take a long time. They move like at a snail's pace. And so I told my wife, I made the mistake to tell my wife I was going to apply. And so, she want to ask me questions every so often, and I don't like questions. But you got to answer your wife. And I said, no, I haven't heard anything. And then out of nowhere, they contacted me and said, okay, you made it for another interview. Okay, I made it for the interview. Then I didn't hear from them for a long time. And then out of nowhere, everything's moving like the act of God. And they say, hey, we want you to come in. I think it went well because I got the position. And there was a level of peace about it, but I still had some discomfort. Not discomfort about the work, but because I had built something at Ohio State that I thought could stand the test of time. And so you get new leaders that come, they have different vision than you might have. I just thought the timing was right. It's a moment in time that it doesn't come too often. And I don't take this lightly. And every day I go to work, I go in the office, I feel a connection to the work, and I see that the work is so noble. And as you can see, I always wear my NSF lapel, and I wear my United States. And this is not a bunch of symbolism for me. It's an act of commitment. And I see myself as a public servant in a way that I never saw myself. And so I'm hoping by the time my term is up that when I pass the baton to someone else, is that we'll be in a better place as a nation.
Why does broadening participation in STEM matter? And what are the national implications if we fail to broaden participation?
It's not just a moral imperative, it's an economic and social imperative that we focus on communities that we haven't fully cultivated and developed for STEM opportunities that are already available to individuals in this moment in time. In 1983, the Hudson Institute produced a report, and the report is almost prophetic, and it's where we are at this moment. It said that the new worker in America would be comprised of women, ethnic minorities, and immigrants. As a result of September 11th, it really impacted our ability to bring certain groups to this country and to be able to obtain national clearances. And so we're at this place at this moment in time that we have to double down in our investments in underrepresented groups that we haven't fully cultivated. What we like to reference is the missing millions. We need to inspire the missing millions. We need to cultivate the missing millions. We need to encourage the missing millions. We need to work with minority serving institutions, historically Black colleges and universities, tribal universities and colleges, minority serving institutions of all kinds, primarily because those are the institutions where they haven't been funded at the level that they needed to be funded, that some would say they have higher number of students who are first gen, low income. But those are the individuals that can really help this country advance itself and maintain its global position as a leader in technology and innovation. So there's the moral piece, there's the economic piece, there's the social piece, and there's the national security piece. If we don't do this, we put our country at risk. And so, we're vigilant in our quest at the National Science Foundation, and you see the same kind of vigilance and commitment in other federal agencies.
This week, you are meeting with MSU leaders and faculty members about our STEM ecosystem across 6 different colleges. What are some of the most impactful ways that we as educators can work to broaden participation in STEM?
Well, first of all, some of the things that we talk about, money alone won't solve this problem. And it's very important that we begin to have meetings of the minds, and we foster convergence, that we have discussions where we bring different individuals around. When I say different, I mean diverse individuals, diversity of thought, where they can really focus on some of these salient problems that we're trying to address. What I'm so excited about being at your beloved institution is that it's comprehensive. It focuses on basic and translational research. It has a strong apparatus for collaboration. It is a leader in the state and beyond. It can serve as a convener. These are the things that NSF does. And what's so exciting to hear is that to see all the different colleges, how there's a genuineness, there's a deliberateness in collaboration. And collaboration and partnering are really important for us to take things to scale. Some of the things that we've invested in, and I hear from the community, which I think a place like Michigan State can help us think through, is how do we sustain some of the transformation that is been launched through some of our projects? How do we bring philanthropy? How do we bring the private sector? How do we bring other state and federal entities together so we can sustain some of the groundbreaking research that takes place at a place like Michigan State? So Michigan State has a critical role, like other institutions like yours, but also we love for some of the exemplary practices that come from the work of an institution like Michigan State to be able to be disseminated and shared with other institutional types in EPSCOR states, or those states that may not have the same kind of apparatus, or institutions that we like to reference as developing emerging research institutions. What are some of the steps or things that other places can learn from Michigan State University? And let me just say this, looking at Michigan State, they're not new to the National Science Foundation. Certainly Michigan State has its share of NSF funding, and I'm sure Michigan State would say that they would like much more. But the agency is really interested in partnerships and collaborations and funding big ideas, if you will, that address some of the grand challenges that we're confronted. And just think about the pandemic and when our backs were pushed against the wall as a nation, how we responded to it. And that's what we're hopeful at NSF, that we will respond to some of these grand challenges that we see in education, that we see with filling a void in the workforce in microelectronics, broadband, or advanced manufacturing, quantum, some of these STEM priority areas that are critical for our nation. But not only that, they will be career opportunities for so many young people across America.
You shared with us already that you have a master's and a PhD in counselor education. And now you're leading a major initiative focused on science and technology for the National Science Foundation. How has your background in education prepared you for this role?
My whole life has been around preparation. And I never know whether or not I'm prepared until I'm actually there. And it's just like in the military, not that I'm going to belittle anyone that's in the military, but I'm going to take a page out of their book in terms of their approach to training and preparing. You prepare for different kinds of warfare, biological, nuclear, etc. But you're preparing for things that may not ever happen. And so my whole life has been about preparing for things, preparing for the moment, and hoping that you don't drop the ball for the moment. I probably got the most orthodox background in the whole entire agency, but that's been a part of my career. And you know me for a long time. And, I'm probably most known not for what I got my degrees in, but my research lines. And because of my research lines, most people don't even know what my degrees are in. But what my counseling degree has done is helping me understand behavior and thoughts and feelings, and how when you enter certain domains, it exalts performance or stunts performance. A lot of my research look at persistence. And when you enter certain domains, if you're not affirmed in those domains, it can affect you psychologically and emotionally. That has helped me tremendously as a leader. And I always say I probably do more counseling outside of the counseling context. I use those skills to help diffuse conflict. I use those skills to help people make a cognitive reframe around issues that they might think they can't do or we can't do, and to redirect it in a positive manner. And so I never would have thought the degree would have had so much utility. That wasn't the intent. My mother worked in social services, and she was the greatest helper that I ever seen in my life. And somehow she rubbed off on me. And I knew I didn't want to do social work. That wasn't because that was just so much a part of my life in terms of helping. But I believe education is redemptive and transformative. And my education has changed the hands I shake, the people I meet, and the places I've been. And if you ever had a true transformative education, you want others to have it. And Dr. Jackson, in my career, Ohio State has afforded me opportunities that I never could have imagined in the places I've done research, places around the world, collaborating with you. But I've seen suffering, and I've seen the negative effects of people not being afforded a quality education. That has been my passion, my commitment, and dedication since I realized that a life of professional football was not going to be in my purview. And so every day I'm trying to get to the Super Bowl. And the Super Bowl is not about my own personal achievements. It's really about how many critical mass of people that we can impact so they can have the life that my parents gave to me that I'm trying to give to my children.
Can you close and share advice to students who are interested in pursuing STEM education? What advice do you have for them?
Well, first of all, is some things that are quite important. And so I've been doing this since I was 4 years old. I still write down all my goals, and I never share what the goals are. And in fact, I write all the goals for my whole entire family, and I never share with my family what the goals are. I just tell them at the end of the year whether or not we reach the goals. And everybody say, how are you going to write the goals for your family? And they don't know what the goals are. And so what I was brought up is that it's important as with my children is for me to create the conditions where they can achieve their goals. And what I try to do is create those conditions. And so what I would tell young people, and I would tell the people who support young people, there are 5 things that impact education and career aspirations. And this is based on my research. The first one is interest. It's important that you find something that you're interested in. And not only that you're interested in, because when you're interested in it, you become curious. When you're curious about something, you become self-regulated. And when you're self-regulated, no one has to motivate you to do that work. I would do this job for free, but I won't do it for free unless you do it for free. But I would do it for free. My wife would say I'm probably doing it for free. It's because vocation in Latin means calling. And I feel like this is my calling in life. No one has to motivate me to do this. I like to think I'm pretty darn good at it. And every day I'm trying to get better at it. But it's hard to be interested in something if you've never been exposed to it. So we want people to be exposed, right? And so what I would tell young people, expose yourself to as many things as possible because your interests will expand, right? And not only that, to explore things that you don't necessarily like because you might like it. Second thing is preparation. Prepare yourself, prepare yourself. If you know you don't write well, work on writing because the very thing that you're not good at will be Achilles heel for you in the future. If you don't do mathematics well, don't run from it, you take it on. If you're a student watching this show and you say, I know I don't do well in calculus, go get a tutor before you need a tutor because your performance, your proficiency shouldn't be based on what the teacher gives you. It should be based on your goal to reach optimal success. The third thing is experiences. Have as many experiences, but certainly have experiences that are indicative of what your trajectory in life is. Now, my mother worked with me so much because I hated talking in front of people. And most people don't even know that. But I practiced so much. And she worked with me. She bought me a recorder. And I used to work on these and practice. And I used to tell my mother, Mom, I was a student athlete. And she said, son, how do you play in front of all those people? And you acting like you so shy. And I told my mom, I got my helmet on. And she said something to me, it was an aha moment. She said, pretend like you got your helmet on. So metaphorically, I got my helmet on right now that nobody can see me, right? So you use these things. So experiences. The next one is connections. It's important for young people, find connections with people. And connections doesn't mean that you have to always talk to them. I study anyone that is great in their craft, whether it's Tiger Woods, was a great dancer, some of the great gymnasts, the golf, anybody who tell me that they're great, Dizzy Gillespie, Miles Davis, I just sit there and study them because in my own way, whether I reach greatness, I make excellence and greatness a priority for me. Whether I reach it or not, but it's a priority for me. And the last thing, opportunities. Your interests, your preparation, your experiences, your connections determine in large measure whether or not you can access opportunities. And sometimes we got opportunities that is ready available to us in our lives, but we can't access them because we're not prepared for it. And so I would tell young people, seize the moment and never, and the last thing I would close that is not connected to my research, but is connected to my home training. And I like to see myself as a son of the South. And it's the things that I carry that I try to share with my own children. And my mother said this, the most powerful words that you can utter from your mouth is thank you. And I thank you for inviting me. But it's important for you to say thank you to people because we should make the assumption that they have to do something to get thank you cards and send them a note and say thank you. And believe me, you'll find yourself in your journey ahead of people that you don't even know why you're ahead of them. And those are the things that I would say is my strength, is my chili sauce, if you will, that has got me to where I am. I'm hopeful it will take me to the next place, wherever that journey is.
Well, Dr. Moore, thank you again for joining us here on the campus and for your work to diversify and improve education and workforce outcomes in STEM. And please join me in thanking Dr. Moore for joining us on campus and being a part of our EXPLOR Ed series.